Help me break down this latest batch of tech earnings and take a look at what to expect from Facebook and Apple next week. I'm joined by Shelly Palmer. He's here in New York with me. He's the author of Digital Wisdom. Yeah, it's been a real head scratcher for the entire week. The NASDAQ really hadn't been doing that well, and some people were expecting a correction in tech. But, you know, that Weibo IPO says that, look, despite the valuations, people still have a lot of confidence that these stocks can monetize what they're doing.
I don't know whether that's true or not. I think that there is a bubble here that is getting ready to be corrected or burst. The story that everybody has to keep in mind is mobile first, mobile first, mobile first. There are a million Androids being activated every day. Facebook is doing the best job of monetizing people on their mobile devices. Regardless of any other thing you hear about Facebook or any other feature they're doing, what they're doing best is they're able to, in a native way, make mobile advertising pay for them. Google is not accomplishing the same thing. They're having an issue. And when you look at Weibo and Yahoo and Alibaba, these really have more to do with what's going to happen in the IPO market and what is going to happen with stocks in the market for its own sake. And it's talking more about that than it is about the tech sector. How investors look at this, well, that's for the eye of the beholder. If you think about Yahoo, you have to think about Alibaba's pending IPO, and Yahoo's windfall could be somewhere between $10 billion and $20 billion, depending on how that comes to the marketplace. What are they going to do with that money? Are they going to invest it? Can you get a piece of Alibaba? If you own Yahoo, you might be able to get a piece of Alibaba if they decide to return some of that capital to the shareholders. Will they? How will they do it? That has nothing to do with how Yahoo is doing or how Alibaba is doing. That has to do with how the market's going to approach and how management's going to approach shareholders. So you can't read much into the tech sector by thinking about how certain market pressures are going to affect business decisions.
And yet, when we look at the tech sector and we look at how fragmented it is becoming, are there clear winners to you? Do you see in the latest batch of results or what may be to come just players that will be here for a long time to come and others that will struggle?
If you're looking long, you have to always bet on Google because it's one of the few companies, in fact, it may be the only company that has a causal relationship with the size of the internet. There are about 2.5 billion people connected to the public internet today. Everybody who's competent says there'll be, by 2020, about 4 billion people connected to the public internet. As the number of people connected increase, Google is going to get larger. Nothing's going to stop that. They're causal. So I always like Google because they get bigger as the internet gets bigger, and it's going to get bigger. With respect to Facebook, like I said, they are one of the few companies doing an excellent job capitalizing on what people like to call native advertising in mobile. And mobile is where the entire future is. People check their phones somewhere between 60 and 100 times a day. That's how people come to the public internet, and that's how people are coming more and more to Facebook, and Facebook's able to capitalize on it. I like Facebook for that. With respect to IBM's earnings and the rest of the tech sector and how NASDAQ's gone up and down, there's an awful lot of games being played right now with little startups and pending IPOs, and I got to tell you, I'm not sure that that talks about the health of the sector as much as it talks about the fickleness of the stock market and the way investors tend to look at stocks.
Yeah, it's definitely not a rational thing. If we take it away from investment for a minute, I know you watch these things very closely. As a user who might be dizzied by all the options out there, is there a platform, a device, a company that you think will transform us in the months and years to come in terms of how we interface with all of those communications tools?
So there are a couple different things. Oculus Rift, which is sort of virtual reality environment. Google Glass is going to be the ancestral DNA of what is to come in wearable computing. You have to like the RealSense technology that Intel is putting into PCs and tablets right now that allow you to just use your hands to make the computer do stuff without having to learn gestures. You can just sort of manipulate real time. There are kids who are going to be born this year and next year who will never know a computer where you just can't reach up and move the dials with your hand without touching the computer or the keyboard. So there's a couple different ways we're going to interface. Wearables, Apple, of course, is going to make a big play in wearables this year. The question is it going to matter, and are they going to get it right? I can promise you that the only devices that are going to be talked about and the only devices people are going to care about in that space until they are actually in the marketplace are the Apple devices. So you always have to watch Apple. And although people are counting them out, I'm not counting them out. Apple every once in a while surprises us, in fact, more often than not.
Thanks so much for this insight. It is absolutely confusing, and I'm glad you're here to help parse some of it. Appreciate it. Thanks.